I think heading into the 2024 season, there was some uncertainty with James Madison and the future of the program. Bob Chesney comes in from Holy Cross, and you weren't really sure what you were going to get, but there was some cautious optimism with this program. They exceed expectations in 2024, and now this is a team that could make a run at the college football playoff. We take a deep dive into the James Madison Dukes and look at what we should expect from this team in 2025. Again, last year, a 9-4 season, that was honestly, like I said, exceeding expectations. They found the right pieces to make a run, and they were a really fun team to watch. The North Carolina game was one that a lot of people didn't see coming. And honestly, that was a really exciting game to watch. This is a team that, like I said, found ways to win and found ways to be explosive. And you're hoping that you get some more of that in 2025. And with the talent that you return, as well as the talent that you bring in from the portal, you're feeling pretty good about what you have for a potential special season this year. Now, the transitions this year were the losses weren't nearly as bad as they were in 2024, but you still had some key departures. Now, you lose certain players that weren't necessarily going to play a role this year, but you do lose quite a bit of talent on the offensive line. You do lose Cam Ross, one of your better wide receivers, but you feel pretty good about what you have coming in. I think the biggest loss has to be losing Eric O'Neill to the transfer portal. You lose him to Rutgers. You also see Lloyd Summerall depart. So there are guys that you maybe wish that were coming back, but you obviously can't do anything about that now. And like I said, this is a group that still feels like it's in a solid position. They feel like they didn't lose nearly as much that they did last year, so they feel like they're in a good position because of that. And I think that I tend to agree. Like I said, you do bring in some really interesting players from the transfer portal. A guy like Jalen Sanchez should have an impact right away. You also, it's not transfer portal, but you do have some freshmen that could play right off the bat. So that's another thing to keep an eye on. You do bring a couple of linemen to play and to potentially start. They're definitely going to compete. But overall, you don't feel like you lose a ton where you're going to panic over what you have. I think the big name that you might want to pay attention to is Isaiah Alston. We'll talk about him when we get into the wide receivers. That's a guy who I think could have a monster impact on this team. And we'll just dive right into the offense first, because the quarterback position is definitely going to be something we have to talk about. And transfers play a role with that as well. Now, Matthew Sluka and Camden Coleman are going to be competing for the starting spot at this point until further notice. But at his peak, Alonzo Barnett is the best quarterback on this team. When you look at what he did last year, absolutely explosive quarterback, took care of the football, 26 touchdowns to just 4 interceptions. He's a dual threat who can make plays with both his arm and his legs. And the injury at the end of the season obviously put things kind of on hold in terms of excitement for this season. Now, Matthew Sluka is more than a capable backup. He obviously has to beat out Coleman for that spot, but we saw what Sluka did at UNLV. And on the field, Matthew Sluka is a competitor who is going to be really fun to watch in this offense. I have concerns about him as a passer, but if James Madison thinks that they can sort those things out and fix some of those things, then maybe you're better. Now, he's not a better passer than Barnett. Barnett, like I said, is the best quarterback on this team. There is no debating that. He is. It's just going to come down to his health and if he's able to play this season. Maybe he sits out if he's not quite ready and he redshirts and he comes back next year. I think either way, this is a team that can still make a run at the playoff. I just feel better about Alonzo Barnett leading my team than Matthew Sluka in terms of the damage I can do in the Sun Belt and the playoff run that I can make with my quarterback. Now, Sluka was a competitor. The one thing that you will give him is that he is going to compete on the field. Now, obviously, the whole NIL thing was kind of just, I'm glad it's over. We can move on, and Matthew Sluka can move on. We can just focus on football. He is someone that, if you look at what he did at UNLV, you watch the games that he played, he is someone that is going to compete for his teammates. He is going to make big plays, and he is going to take some hits along the process. Now, durability becomes a concern at that point, but at the same time, that's kind of energy you want on your team, especially if you have uncertainty at quarterback. Now, if Coleman's able to win that job coming into this program, then maybe that you get to go with him. Maybe you see a 2 quarterback system, because again, Sluka is more of that running quarterback that can make plays with his legs. We'll see if he can do things with his arm. But this is a quarterback position that, even though there's uncertainty with it, there's still plenty of excitement for where they're headed. And like I said, a lot of eyes are going to be on Barnett and what his recovery looks like, if he can get back to 100%, or if it's just going to take more time. Again, the injury was not at an ideal time. Not that there's ever a good time to have an injury, but the fact that he got hurt towards the end of the season means that it's going to be very difficult for him to get back to 100% and get this team to where they need to go. But again, this is a team that still has potential to make a playoff run regardless of who's playing quarterback. Fortunately for them, too, the rushing attack will be in great hands. You return George Pettaway, one of the best running backs in the Sun Belt this year, and this is a group that finished 28th in the country in rushing. You also get a healthy Ayo Adeyi coming back as well. Wayne Knight is an explosive player who's going to be utilized in multiple different ways. You have a good group of running backs that are going to make life very easy. Now, the quarterback position might need some time to get sorted out. Even if Barnett comes back, he might need time to get back in the swing of things. He might need to get back into the rhythm. That's going to be something that could take some time, and the rushing attack might have to step up. If Adeyi is fully recovered from his foot injury last year and Pettaway is still what we expect, that's going to be really fun. And then you throw Wayne Knight in the mix, you feel pretty good about what this team can do offensively because of the talent they have coming back. And then you combine them with either Barnett or Sluka. That's a good combination that will give you a lot of big plays with their legs. That's really fun. And I think that it's just only a matter of time before those explosive plays happen, regardless of what happens at the quarterback position. Now, the passing attack kind of hinges on the quarterback and who ends up playing and what they're capable of doing. Again, if it's Barnett and he's healthy, you feel pretty good. If it's Sluka, you maybe have some concerns about who he's going to well, not who he's going to throw to, but how he's going to throw. Those are going to be the concerns that this coaching staff has to work through, but you do feel pretty good about what you have at wide receiver. Isaiah Alston, like I said, is a big-time playmaker. Now, this is someone who could have played at Iowa State. With the departures that they saw, he could have been a starter at Iowa State, but he hits the portal. The former Army transfer has big playability. He is someone that could be a major threat for this team. I'm excited to see what he's capable of doing as a go-to guy. And again, if this offense needs someone to step up, Isaiah Alston could be that guy. I think that he'll be really exciting. I think that the wide receivers have a ton of options, and it's feeling like it's a pretty deep group that just needs to be utilized in the right way. Now you look at other guys that could contribute behind him. Landon Ellis is another guy to keep an eye on. I think that he'll be definitely part of that rotation. Dylan Williams is a young player who could step up and be part of that rotation as well. Other starters that we'll look at, we talked about Jalen Sanchez. He'll be a good player in the slot. Comes in from Villanova, had a productive year for the Wildcats there. Nick DeGennaro, he's someone is going to be really fun to watch opposite of Alston. I think that Alston is going to command a lot of attention. So somebody else is going to get a lot of targets, and they're going to see a lot of matchups that they can win one-on-one. Zaron Collins could be part of that as well. A freshman, Michael Scott, is someone to keep an eye on. I think that there's been a lot of excitement about his potential. And even though he's a young player, if you have ability, you're going to find the field. And this is a passing attack that I think has the ability to make things happen. It's just going to come down to the chemistry they have with the quarterback and who that quarterback ends up being. Tight end position's kind of the same thing. You have some underrated players that aren't really well known right now, but they could step up and surprise a lot of people this year. Logan Kyle, I think, will be a really fun tight end for this team. Josh Pfeiffer, same thing. You also bring in Lakota Dupre from Charlotte, so you have good depth at that tight end position. You're feeling really good about what the talent level looks like at this position, as well as the wide receiver position. So it's, again, just going to come down to who's throwing them the football. The offensive line will also play a role in that. Giving your quarterback time to make plays with his arm or his legs, or just give running lanes to the rushing attack in general, the quarterbacks, running backs, whatever it's going to be. This is a healthy group for now. This is an experienced group, and this is a group that I think is going to have a really fun year. The tackles are, I think, going to be extremely fun to watch. Joseph Simmons, a young player to keep an eye on that could have a breakout year. Patrick McMurtry is a really good player for this team. The tackle positions feel really solid. If healthy, the interior offensive line is also good. You bring in Zach Greenberg from North Carolina. Carter Sweezy and Riley Robel are going to be your two guards, but both of them need to stay healthy. If they are healthy, you're feeling pretty good about what you have up front. For some insurance, they brought in some players from the transfer portal. You do bring in a guy in Cam McNair that could be part of the tackle rotation, and we'll see if he's able to, maybe he steps in for Simmons. I think McMurtry is pretty solid at that right tackle position, but we'll see. Brett Davis and Jacoby Campbell come into that rotation as well. Josh Toner can play both guard spots. So overall, you feel pretty good about this group. A part of the surprise last year for James Madison was the defense playing as well as it did. Now, part of that has to do with some of the players that left, but you also return players that are going to get the other guys up to speed. Losing Eric O'Neill and Lloyd Summerall at the edge positions will definitely leave some vacancies that you need to figure out. Taurus Jones was a solid player as well. Terrence Spence. You have other guys that you need to replace, but this group feels pretty good about what they have coming back, as well as what they bring in via the portal. Now, the defensive end positions are probably the biggest question right now, because you're not exactly sure what is going to happen, who's going to step up and replace some of those guys. And I don't think the production is going to be a one-to-one replacement. It's going to be by committee almost, and a group that is going to do it with multiple guys instead of just one. But that's okay. So when you have someone like Aiden Gobaya, Sahir West, those are two guys that I think are going to need some time to get acclimated, but definitely have plenty of talent. And even if it is rotation, those are two guys that are ready to prove that they can handle that. On the opposite side, Xavier Holmes, Amar Thomas, one of those two guys is going to be the starter. The other one is definitely going to be a part of that as well. We'll see which one of them ends up solidifying themselves as that guy. But overall, I think that there is plenty of excitement despite the departures that you have. The edge position probably is just a little bit more uncertain right now than the interior. Emmanuel Bush comes back on the interior, an honorable mention All Sunbelt player last year. You also have Michael McMullen, and Terry Lockett comes back as well. Andrew Tadeo, Kels Bush. There's plenty of depth behind those guys as well. So this is a group that I think has the ability to make something happen, and it's just going to be a matter of what do the guys on the edge do? Because if the interior is doing their part, that's just fine. Those should be okay, but you have to get a pass rush of some sort. And last year, they were very good at that. So if you can replicate that, you're in a good position. And again, this is a team that should be near the top of the conference, or at least, if not at the top of the conference, for a lot of people. A lot of people are excited about James Madison. I think that hype has been a relatively new trend. I think a lot of the national media weren't really talking about James Madison because of whatever. Well, it's probably because of Group of Five. People just don't pay attention to the Group of Five. But this is a team that I've been excited for a while now. I think that they have the right pieces. Again, a lot of that hinges on Barnett's health at quarterback, but if he's healthy, this is a special group. And the defense also has plenty of talent. We'll talk about another guy here that's going to have a major impact as well. The linebacker position might have to make some plays if the edge isn't going to be doing the job, but you have Trent Hendrick coming back, Gannon Weathersby. Those are two guys that I think are solidified in their roles. You feel pretty good about what you have in those two, and you're expecting some big things from them in 2025. You also have some good depth behind them. Jaden Studio, you have Drew Spinagatti. Those are two guys that could be in the rotation as well. Again, you need depth in college football. And if you're going to make a run like James Madison, you need guys that are going to be able to step up. And the linebacker position is asked a lot in every defense. They're asked to do a lot of things and make a lot of plays and make a lot of hits. So you're going to need some depth to give a guy a break. And your starters might need some time. But at the same time, if you have good guys behind them, you're not necessarily worried about a drop off in production because of the talent you have coming back, or at least coming into the program. Hendrick and Weathersby, though, I feel pretty good about where they're at. They are looking to play a more prominent role in the defense this year. And again, if this defense wants to continue playing at the level they did last year, they are going to need some new guys to inherit some bigger responsibilities. So the linebacker position is definitely one of those. And it'll be fun to see how they handle that new responsibility, how do they handle that new role, and how do they make sure that they're part of the solution and not part of the problem. But the front group maybe has a little bit more uncertainty than the secondary. Even though you bring in a couple of transfers that are going to help right away, you feel pretty good about those guys coming in. A guy like Elijah Culp comes in and he is ready to start right off the bat. He is someone that's going to be a really fun corner. He and Justin Eaglin will definitely compete right now, but you're feeling pretty good about what you have either way with one of those two guys. The cornerback position on the opposite side, you have Mekhi Rogers and Chance Harley that are going to do the same thing, but you have good depth with those four guys because they're going to compete for the starting spot. They are going to push each other to make sure that, hey, well, you know what, if you're not going to push it and take that spot, I'm going to take it. And this is a group that unfortunately lost a couple of big players at the cornerback position. You know, losing Chauncey Logan to the transfer portal, I think that's a bigger loss than a lot of people realize. He ends up at Memphis. That's a tough one to stomach if you are James Madison, but you do have guys that were ready. You also bring in talent from the transfer portal that's going to step up. The other guy that I talked about before, Jacob Thomas, he is someone that is, I think, going to have a big year. Second team All Sun Belt last year, one of the guys that didn't leave, probably could have gone to a number of schools, but sticks with the Dukes, and that's probably why he's one of the, one of the players that when you look at down the road, you're looking at a guy who it's like, well, he could have gone wherever he wanted. He probably could have gone to at any point to a number of schools, and he decides to stick with this team. He is going to be the leader of the defense, a very productive player on the back end, can produce turnovers, can make plays when they need him to, and that's a good piece to have back. Curtis Harris Lopez will be the guy lining up opposite of him, but you do have other guys behind them as well. Now, Thomas is definitely the star of this group, but you have guys like Chase Regan, you have Kai Holmes. Those are guys that could step up when needed or fill in as rotational pieces. Thomas is probably going to stay on the field for most of the time, but if he needs a break, you feel like you have good pieces behind him that don't necessarily give you as much anxiety about what happens when Thomas isn't on the field. DJ Barksdale played the nickel position. He and KJ Flo are two really fun players to watch. They probably don't get as much recognition when Thomas is on the field. And I think that they could have a really fun impact depending on how this defense wants to utilize them. Again, with this coaching staff, they feel like they have the experience to do certain different things. And even though you bring in a couple players from the portal, you feel like you can get those guys who are also experienced to compete and understand what they're trying to do. And understanding the playbook, the play calls is going to be a big thing for this team. And getting these guys all on the same page is their biggest challenge right off the bat. Getting guys healthy, keeping them healthy, and then getting the new faces up to speed with what they're going to do and their responsibilities is the biggest thing. Getting to the college football playoff won't be easy. But if this team truly is where they think they are, then this schedule bodes pretty well for a potential run. Now, the over-under is 7.5. I'd be curious what it would be if Alonzo Barnett was fully healthy. Does that change that number? And how much does it change? Now, I don't know if Alonzo Barnett is worth an entire win on that win total, or if he's worth more. I would like to think that the win total would be 8.5 at least if he's healthy. Now, the tough part is that the first month, we're going to find out pretty quick if a playoff run is in the cards, because you play Weber State right off the bat, but then you go to Louisville. And Louisville is a team that is going through a transition. And James Madison is an ideal team that can pull off an upset in that game. They definitely can. Now, Louisville won't take them lightly, but that is still a game where they can pull off an upset. But that's going to be really hard. Beating Louisville on the road is not going to be easy. Even if you do lose that game, though, if you're competitive in it, you're pretty good in terms of where you can be for making a run. Now, you do need some help from outside of the conference. You need to see certain teams like Boise State have some troubles. Everything, though, is still on the table for you to win the Sun Belt. And even when you go to Liberty, that's another tough game that you'll have your challenges for sure. But again, James Madison can win that game. So those are winnable games. Louisville probably less than the Liberty game, but those are tough road tests. And again, we will find out pretty quick if this team actually is a legitimate contender for the college football playoff or if they're going to need some time. You host Georgia Southern right off the bat. That's another team that could take a step in the Sun Belt. A trip to Georgia State, then you go Louisiana and Old Dominion. Those are two tough teams to face, in my opinion. And then you got a bye week before kind of a tough end at Texas State. That's another team that will be really fun to watch in the Sun Belt. Marshall is probably going to be towards the bottom this year. App State's looking to bounce back. Hosting Washington State is another game that could be difficult, but that's a game that I still think that James Madison can win. And especially if this is a team that has 1 or 0 losses up until this point, that is going to be an electric atmosphere. And that's going to be a game that if you're a James Madison fan, you probably going to want to watch, because that game will be tough, but it'll be a game that you can definitely win. And late in the season, the excitement will be at an all-time high. Then you finish the year at Coastal Carolina. If you find a way to do what you are capable of doing, this is going to be a special year. Now, the ceiling, if I'm being realistic, I really want to say 12-0, but I just think that Louisville game is so tough. It could be 12-0, it could be 11-1. I could see either way. Realistically, it feels like 11-1 is that ceiling. Again, the quarterback position and the uncertainty there is really where you have some questions and some big questions. Now, if things don't go right and the wheels kind of fall off, the Louisville game, Liberty, Georgia Southern, Louisiana, Old Dominion, Texas State, App State, Washington State, those are games that will be challenging. Now, things aren't going to fall off completely. The floor is probably around 6-6 at worst. And again, that's if things are going terrible. But this team is in a good place. They have a good culture, even with a new coach from last year. Chesney's done a good job of getting these guys to compete and win football games. I don't think the wheels fall completely off at any point. If they do, though, it's still not going to be bad. A 6-6 season would be disappointing, but still, it's going to be a good team. It's going to be a solid team. I don't think 6-6 is going to happen. The over probably feels like it's going to hit more than the under, in my opinion, but we'll see what happens. This is a team that has plenty of excitement. They have the ability to make something special this year. And if their quarterback can figure out a way to get healthy quicker, or if they're able to lean on whoever is going to replace him, and that works out, this is going to be a special year for James Madison. And this will be a year where they do make that run, and they'll be talking about this for a long time.